This is Professor Darif Seitz. This Java tutorial is part 4 on creating classes using the card game class suite as an example. In the previous parts we've looked at the card class, the card hand class, this diagram, and in this part we'll be looking at the card deck. The card deck contains 52 possible cards, a standard deck. However, there's a constructor where you can exclude certain cards to get other custom decks that are subsets of the 52. And the card deck has the ability to deal a card or deal a hand of a certain size. And we'll go now and look at the code for the card deck. Here's the card deck class. The comments about it being a standard 52 playing card deck. It has an array of booleans, a private data member. The data members appear first. And the booleans, true will mean that the card is still present in the deck for that deck value, and false will mean that that card is gone from the deck. It's been dealt out. There's also an exclusions array for custom decks. We will be testing with a custom deck in our test program. And the current size, the number of cards remaining, is also available here as a private data member. There is a need for some randomness in the card deck, because when we deal cards, they're dealt randomly out of the deck. Constructors here. The first constructor simply initializes the deck with no exclusions. There's another constructor that takes an array of integer deck value exclusions and calls the private init deck function with this exclusions array. Init deck takes an exclusions array and initializes the deck. It goes through the deck first of all and sets everything in there to true. If the exclusions array is null, it gets out. Otherwise, it uses the exclusions array to go through and exclude certain entries from the deck. And it's not important that we understand all the details of that code. We're mainly just trying to give examples here of classes so that you can see how classes are created and how they are related to each other and what kinds of things you'll see in them. The dealed card will return a card randomly out of the deck of the ones that are remaining. It uses a random number generator. The deal hand will return a card hand of a certain size as requested by the caller. And this one will guard against invalid arguments, parameters being passed in. We'll throw an illegal argument exception in case that happens. Get size, the current number of cards still in the deck. Reset the deck. We'll reset it to its constructed value, either the full 52 or the exclusions deck, and two string functions to print out the deck in various forms, a brief form and a longer form. Let's go ahead and look now. We have a test class. Let's resize the window a little bit to see that better. Here's the test driver class called CardDeck test. It's going to test out the constructors, dealing cards, and dealing hands. The first constructor default just construct a standard 52 card deck and uses the 2-string to display it. The next constructor will call a function to create a euchre deck. Euchre is a card game that uses the 9s, 10s, 11s up through the ace of all 4 suits. So we'll create a euchre deck here and print it out, display it with a 2-string. Here's the function to create the euchre deck. Using the constructor that takes an exclusion array, we've excluded everything that is prior to the 9s in each suit. Deal cards is a test function here where we'll create a euchre deck, and then we'll go through and let's see, where are we dealing cards out here? Let's see. Deal cards. It appears that we're dealing out all the cards in the deck because this for loop is going all the way through deck size, which we get up here. So we're going to go through the whole euchre deck, and for each entry in it, we're going to deal a card. So deck deal card, and we'll print out what that card is. But one thing to keep in mind here, when we're dealing cards from our deck and dealing a card, the deals are random. So even though we have this deck, each card is coming out randomly out of the cards that we have. We're just controlling how many of the cards from the deck are going to be dealt out one by one in this deals cards test driver. Deal hands, where we'll have a euchre deck as well, and this time we're going to deal out hands of size 5 cards at a time, and we'll have to check after we get a hand of that size, because the euchre hand doesn't have an exact multiple of 5. It has 24 cards. So we check here that if hand is null on the return, then we get out. Otherwise we display the 5-card hand, the random hand from the euchre deck. Okay, let's go ahead and run this test driver. Here's the output. First, the default constructor with a comment that this is the 52 card deck, and you can see this one here is just after it's been constructed. So we're not dealing anything out yet. They only come out randomly when you deal. So it's the whole 52 cards in the order that they are deck value order. Next we have exclusions. So this is our euchre deck. 9 through ace of clubs, 9 through ace of diamonds, hearts and spades. Then we're going to deal cards out of our euchre deck and keep track of the deck size as we do it. We're dealing one card at a time, and they're coming out in a random order, not in any deck order as they were originally in. So you can see how the cards are going down. We're dealing one card at a time all the way down, different cards coming out till there's nothing left in the deck. The next one here, we'll have to resize the window slightly to see this. We're dealing hands of 5 cards each. The deck size starts at 24. It's a euchre deck. Here's the 5 cards in their string brief format. Goes down to 19. 5 more, 5 more, 5 more. At this case the deck size is 4. It's not enough to get another 5-card hand out of. That's where we checked for the null return value, and we stopped trying to do that. Let's go back to the source code. So we observed the card deck and its ability to simulate random dealing of single cards or hands of cards. We're going to look again one more time at the class diagram for the card game suite. So without understanding every detail, this should give you some ideas about how you create classes, what they look like individually, and how they kind of cobble together as a suite to work together in a game. In a future tutorial in this series, we will create an actual game with a graphical user interface that shows these classes being used in a real card game.